Okay.
Recording?
We're recording.
All right. Hey, I'm from Portland, my pops, Savior Gabagool. We watched Brainsmasher, a love story, which means it's time for another Portland at the Movies.
In a world, in a time, in a land of eternal beauty, all that stands between a city and a disaster. In a city where anything can happen. If you thought you had seen it all.
Now this is Portland, Oregon. I live here. This is where the rest of the story happens. And the setup.
For the last time, we are not ninjas!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Portland at the Movies. My name is Todd Workoven. I am joined by, as always, by Mark Middleton. How are you, Mark?
I'm really well today.
Good. And of course, Brian the Unipiper Kid. How are you, Brian?
I'm doing well, Todd.
Good. So this month we have Brainsmasher, a love story starring the one and only Andrew Dice Clay and Terry Hatcher. So
A young Terry Hatcher.
young Terry Hatcher. She had only done a little bit of TV, and she was also in Tango and Cash. She played Sylvester Stallone's sister in that, but not a huge role. But at the very beginning of her career and at the very end of Andrew Dice Clay's career. So that's an interesting intersection because this is like 1993. Although, when did he start? I meant to look up when Andrew Dice Clay hosted Saturday Night Live and half the couple of the women boycotted the women cast members. But that was around this time. But even 93 seems like that was a little late for the Andrew Dice Clay.
Someone explain Andrew Dice Clay. It's one of those names that, like, I know the name, I know the guy, but I don't really know what he was.
So he was a stand-up comic known for kind of speaking with that accent that he speaks. Although his parents in this movie also from Portland, so I don't know where they picked up this accent because they all talk like that. His dad and Seinfeld's mom.
Exactly.
But he was known for very crass and kind of misogynistic jokes and kind of, it was kind of the first rise of the incels, kind of, if you look at it in a historical thing, because it was very aggressively macho and very it wasn't very displayed in this movie, but like how he calls everyone chick and babe and I dated this girl and hickory dickory dock and like everything was profanity. And,
ADC seen through the lens of 2020.
yes.
Yeah.
So, and this was kind of at the time where I guess it's I feel like he and Two Live Crew kind of had an apex at the same time. So it was like this renaissance of like filthy things. Tipper Gore just had the PMRC things to put the warning stickers on record labels kind of at this time in the 80s. So I feel like this was a blip on the cultural map of like, we're not going to take all this whatever. And so he was just a stand-up comic and like I said, he hosted Saturday Night Live once, and a couple of the cast members refused to go on with him. But other than this movie, he didn't really transition into a career of any. He's still a stand-up comic.
Did he have other movies?
I don't really think
He was in a movie very recently that was massive.
he'll tell us that movie in a moment.
I think he was in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I think.
Maybe.
I just watched that.
Let's all look. I was looking through the Oscar. This will probably all get cut out, but through the Oscar winners or whatever and nominees, and the costume designer for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was nominated, and she's Madonna's old stylist.
Stars Born.
He was.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay. So he's having like a Jean-Claude Van Damme type, but he never. I know he still does stand up, and from what I've heard from all the other stand-ups, he's a very gracious, like super nice guy and all that. But his stand-up character was that gruff,
Yeah.
I get all the chicks and chicks are dumb and like all of that sort of thing. So it was interesting then to see that this movie wasn't really any of that, because that's what he is known for.
I
Or would
kind
you
of
say
felt
there
there was a
was-
lot of that.
Am I going to have to recalibrate some sort of moral? Moral barometer.
So Terry Hatcher plays a supermodel,
Right.
and he plays a bouncer for a club in Portland, and there's so many interactions of, well, you're pretty good for a broad.
That's true. That's true.
And you're such a musclehead, and well, you're such a, you got the looks,
Bimbo.
and she got
Right. And there was some of that, but I guess I was gauging it on the scale of things Andrew Dice Clay was
right.
known
He
for
toned
saying.
It, he toned it back,
Right.
But it was definitely a misogynistic
Tone to yeah,
tone
sorry.
to it.
That's a
The-
good
the-
clarification.
The working title of this film was The Bouncer and the Lady.
Oh, that's right.
That's about how
And
much
David
effort they
Walker's
put
like-
into the script. The bouncer and the lady. I got very like Roadhouse, Tango and Cash. Speaking of kind of those vibes, it's a very 80s movie, even though it's coming out in 93.
So as you were watching it, did you realize that this movie, when it was made, it was supposed to be like a parody of all these action movies at the time?
No.
It was supposed to be like a satire making fun of all those
Where
other
did you
movies.
learn that?
Where did I read that?
Well, the movie didn't tell us, so you must have learned that somewhere
I
else.
did read it somewhere. I think it was, might have been.
There
this book.
were some things in the movie that was funny. We'll play
Well,
that.
You want to just dive
yeah,
in?
yeah.
dive
Why
into
don't you
that?
explain?
Yeah, so it's kind of a martial arts love story movie. You've got
one of those old.
this martial arts component and this relationship between Terry Hatcher and Andrew Dice Clay, and or the buddings of that. Well, the group of Asians are Chinese, and they're Shaolin monks, and they wear masks and dress in black and
Like the Green
stuff.
Hornet type masks.
Yeah, or like a black version of the Phantom of the Opera mask.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody in the movie refers to them as ninjas, and over and over and over again, and comically, they always correct them. We are not ninjas. And they never specifically say
I was
we're
gonna
Shaolin
say
monks.
because I missed the very first thing that is probably in this clip, and so I was always wondering what they landed on. I just knew
They're
they
Shaolin
weren't
monks.
ninjas.
Yeah. And I realized that I didn't. So, Vamp for a little while. I need to export this
I
as
can
a.
talk more about Andrew Dice Clay, I guess. He was also known for remember Arsenio Hall would always have those like huge leather jackets that were all crazy. Andrew Dice Clay also had like the big giant leather jacket with like a big dice on it and multicolored panels. In this one, he has a big jacket and it just says Brainsmasher on the back, because he is a bouncer. And that's his nickname, as he constantly tells me or tells everyone. And then when he punches someone in the face at some point, someone from like off screen goes, "That's why they call him the Brainsmasher," or something like that. It's so
It
absurd.
was somebody in line.
That
Or-
club
yeah.
was so he works at that club, and in line are like these like 40-year-old, like they kind of look like they're out just for a nice dinner, but they're all in line at the club. And then inside this club, what kind of music are they playing?
It was very 80s, of a different like decade.
But synchronized? You saw the
Oh,
dancing?
the dance! Yes, the crowd. They went above and beyond with the extras in that scene. Like, I wonder if they just on their own got really tired of filming that scene for like 4 hours straight.
Yeah,
and
because
so,
they play and we can drop in a clip of this weird music. It's very like very bad David Bowie like B-side Labyrinth type of music
Kind
that they
of-
tried to replicate.
kind of Devo-esque.
And so they show this giant club that Andrew Dice Clay works at, and they're giving this concert on stage or whatever this band is. And you see the audience is like this huge audience, and they're all first kind of swaying back and forth, and you think, oh, they're at a concert and they're just swaying like that. But then like they do a couple different turns and moves all together as a group. And then you see a couple scenes where everyone's just kind of dancing on their own. But then in another wide shot, they're all in a circle with like their hands out and like doing like, I didn't know if it was supposed to be a cult but now that you kind of lay that that lens of if this is supposed to be a parody, that sort of makes sense. Like, haha, you go to a club and you're just a member of this cool cult or whatever.
So multiple reviews online call it a parody, and then there's actually a really good write-up in this book that we don't give enough love to on the show, but the PD Eccentric book.
Yes.
And so that's one of the films that's featured
Oh,
in
good.
here.
I'm glad you looked that up.
So Amy Wade's description of it says, filmed as an action movie send-up, a so-called action comedy.
Huh.
But the funny thing is, like, looking back at this film and other films like it at the time, those other films are almost parodies of themselves, that it's hard now to see this as a parody because it just falls right in line with most of those other movies.
Well, and I'm trying to look up the director here.
And the director, yeah. Did you see
I
what
didn't. I
like
was
his
gonna look up,
filmography was? His filmography is like he was a B movie king.
Okay.
And he's another one who's just like cranking them out to this day.
So do you think it's is that revisionist history that they're trying to do, like this comic?
I don't know. That's for us to decide right now.
Although, I mean, to be fair, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, of course. That's the other thing that that Andrew Dice Clay did. I've never seen that, but that was another big hit of his. That was in 1990, so it was 3 years before that. So, but yeah, I don't. There were there's the ninja joke part. There's another thing about. There's another running joke about a $10,000 watch that Terry Hatcher gives to Andrew Dice Clay as kind of a payment.
Is that even a joke?
But they keep saying, like, every time they mention, like, who would pay $10,000 for a watch whenever the watch is talked about? And it's like, well, I don't know.
People who buy watches.
A joke, I guess?
Yeah, right.
Fancy watches are expensive, I guess.
I mean, the other thing that was weird was that opening where Andrew Dice Clay talks to the audience. And then you think that, okay, this movie's going to be a little quirky and off kilter, but then they don't do anything with that the rest of the film.
Yeah, so that that clip that we played at the very beginning of him said, hey, I'm from Portland or whatever. There's like some nice city shots of Portland. And then the next thing you see is Andrew Dice Clay like in a phone booth and talking to his ma because they're Italian. They have problems with their ma all the time. They got a call. And then like hangs up and he turns to camera and is like, oh, hello, I didn't see you come in, or whatever to the audience.
Did you notice the content of the phone call? I reviewed that, and it's about the story. Like,
oh, really?
And because then he starts narrating. There's a few moments right at the beginning of the movie where you see. You see Terry Hatcher open the box.
Oh, right.
And Andrew Dice Clay is narrating that part where he says, and then the lady received the box from her sister that had the flower.
Right.
But then that stopped.
Well, that is a thing, and I kind of learned this via How Did This Get Made? They mentioned that one of the trends that they see now that they've watched all of these terrible movies is when a movie opens with exposition that tells you the story that's about to happen, outside of Star Wars or anything, that's when they're going back and say, this movie doesn't make any sense. We have got to tell the audience what is happening and what is going to happen, else none of this is going to work. And so you see it all of the time, like in the terrible sci-fi movies where like even Zardoz, opens with like nine paragraphs of exposition from a floating head to try to tell you what's going on.
So this audio clip is throughout the entire movie, there's this running gag of this ninja thing. So here's
a lot of vamping.
Super clip. Yeah, sorry.
What's with the ninjas? I told you, the Chinese monks. Ninjas are Japanese. Listen to me. There are Chinese ninjas after me because they want the ultimate power.
We are not ninjas.
What, are you ignorant? Ninjas are Japanese. These guys are speaking Chinese.
You are a very wise man.
Masked ninjas.
We are not ninjas.
Let's kick some ninja butt.
For the last time. We are not ninjas!
Now you really said or I'll blow your ninja butts to hell.
We are not ninjas.
I guess that wasn't the last time.
If I say you're ninjas, then you're ninjas. Hey, ninja.
We are not
sister says you're a ninja, you're a goddamn ninja.
Boy, they double and triple and quadruple down on that joke. But
That's
now,
the only way you're going to make it funny.
So now, I mean, now as I'm kind of replaying this movie in my head, thinking of the parody angle, a lot more of it does make sense. Was I like to miss that? Am I just a moron for not seeing it?
No, and
No.
I don't think I
Okay.
would have picked up on it either had I not started to read it.
Because there are some funny parts. Like, obviously, that was meant to be a running joke, and there's some other things that are clearly meant to. But that explains like things like the police officers that are interrogating. So, let's lay out the story a little bit. Do you want to describe the one sentence story, Brian?
Okay. A botanist arrived. No. Did she arrive in Portland? The botanist.
I think the botanist lives here, and that's why Terry Hatcher had to visit her.
Okay, a botanist who lives in Portland mailed a package to her sister, who is not in Portland, and then told her sister she needs her to come to Portland.
Yeah.
And she comes to Portland.
Bring the package.
And she brought the package. And then as she meets up with her sister, they in an abandoned warehouse, they are ambushed by not ninjas.
Not ninjas.
And then from there, the whole movie takes place, I think, in one night, right?
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The whole thing takes place at night, so I hope you
I
want to
have
see Portland at night.
I have never seen the streets of Portland more abandoned than this movie. In every scene,
a
there is a
zombie
horde
movie.
of not ninjas literally just running down the middle of Chinatown.
It was funny because
and there's not a car in sight.
They do what a lot of films in Portland do, where they try to make Portland look like a much bigger city than it really is. But then they do that, and at the same time, it's empty, so it looks really weird.
That was a super weird choice. But yeah, so the not ninjas are after.
And then the rest of the movie is them running from the ninjas.
That's about it.
Because she eventually runs into the nightclub to try and escape the ninjas, and that's where she meets Andrew Dice Clay, who is the bouncer.
Right.
And then they team up, develop affection, and are on the run for ninjas for the next 90 minutes.
However interminably long this movie felt, although it claimed to be only 88 minutes, but
it took me 4 sittings to finish this. I kept falling asleep.
Where were we? This felt very, I guess, so the director, you said, did just a lot of other...
Yeah, his most well-known film is Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, wow. Albert Pune. So he was the writer-director, is that what you said?
Yeah.
He does have a lot of credits. He did 1990s Captain America?
Yes, that one too.
Whoa.
And he's got 4 films in production right now. He's got Cyborg Nemesis, The Dark Rift, City of Blood, The Kickboxer, Algiers, and Cyborg Rise of the Flesh Eaters.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, he has done... this has not stopped him from making movies.
No.
This experience. So it was released straight to video, except for in Brazil. It did open in Brazil, had a wide opening in Brazil. So I couldn't figure out the club, I guess, talking about this, but now I guess all of my complaints can sort of fall under the parody. It's like the YouTube, everyone putting the fair use thing up before their videos. This falls under that same thing except for parody. Because the club made no sense for who was inside. Do you have a clip? Can you play a clip of music of the club? Do you have the movie? Or I can plug into...
Let's hook you up.
Okay. Hook you up.
Look.
All right, so I'll cut this part out too. Not learn to use the internet. Brainsmasher, I love story. Oh, there's that Vidmark opening. So this music is playing in the club.
Is this when they're all dancing in sync?
Yeah. The club looks huge. I don't know where they filmed this.
It's the Roseland.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Oh, wow. All right, so here, pot it up a little bit. So yeah, they are all dancing in sync, and but then we get after they get chased out of there. There is a scene that I really liked, and that is when they escape on top of the Max train, and I forget. Oh, they go to the Sky Bridge. I think is it the one in between?
It doesn't match up.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because they're jumping off the one in between the mall.
It almost looks like they're jumping off of the Burnside Bridge onto the Max.
Yeah.
And then they end up traveling, starting just north of, or just west of Nordstrom, and traveling past Nordstrom, past the Portland's living room. Portland.
You know what?
Pioneer Square.
Pioneer Square. When I was looking up, because where the old Lotus Club used to be, that was that was on the corner of, I forget the two streets by the it's across the street from the courthouse.
Yeah.
1 block south of,
like
or 1 block north of that.
Second and Salmon or something.
Yeah, it's no longer there. It just recently is no longer, but they had like a cool 40 sign, which I always loved that place. But there's a park across the street from that is called something I had never seen before. Lounsdale Square.
Yeah. Was that
There's Lounsdale Square, there's something else, and then there's Terry Shrunk Plaza. But each of those 3 blocks' parks like have their own name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I legitimately have never seen Lonsdale Square.
Was that the Occupy Portland encampment?
Yeah,
oh,
I
maybe.
think so, yeah.
It wasn't all of downtown Portland that encampment. I wish I can find. I'm going to try to find one more music thing here a second. Because it was just so weird.
Let me try this down first.
No.
That was a really cool scene though when they rode on top of the Max for a long time.
Yeah, so they did a lot of their exposition of just Terry Hatcher and Andrew Dice Clay, and they were really moving down the street just on top of the Max, which I thought that was really cool. Like,
that's crazy.
Just to kind of see the town, but also a neat
So I was
way
trying to figure out exactly how they did that, because
do you think it was before like OSHA really had a stranglehold on the filming?
Because it looks they are on top of a Max, but the electric connections weren't up.
Oh, right.
And so maybe
it could have
they can do that on a 2-car Max and keep the electric connections up on one,
or they could have just
not on the other.
Put it on a fake semi truck
and pulling the Max.
There we go. Do you think it was on top of a real Max train, or do you think
so.
they faked
It definitely looked like a real Max train.
Yeah, and I don't see why they
would do it the other way when they already have the Max train. Yeah, that was really neat. And then they get off the top of the Max train, and they just give a really nice, as the Max train pulls out of the station, you just get to read all of Get Your Morning Moving, K103 with Craig Walker, which was pretty great. But yeah, I really liked that. I did wonder if Andrew Dice Clay still have the jacket that says Brainsmasher on the back. Not once, not twice, but 3 times do women get kicked in the face in this movie.
Yeah, Terry Hatcher got punched in the face,
and
too.
her sister, and there was some lady at the beginning. I don't know who she was, but I just wrote someone a flying kick to a woman's face, which was crazy. Oh, when the ninjas, when we go to this club, they're playing and
they're not
whatever.
Ninjas.
They're not ninjas. When they chase Terry Hatcher then into the club as well. And then the not ninjas just jump up on stage and like kick the guitarist through the drum kit, and they kick the lead singer woman in the face.
And there's no security, and yeah,
that's probably par for the course of the Roseland in the early 90s.
Just
That's
getting
true.
kicked in the face. So yeah, and then I couldn't figure out why not only does Andrew Dice Clay talk like he is not from the Northwest, but then they have his parents in the movie who also speak like
they all moved out together.
Together 40
From the
years ago, and
Bronx.
nobody lost the accent.
Their apartment looked like a stereotypical New York movie apartment.
It did look like an
Set
old
in
episode of the Seinfeld because
Yeah,
it was
totally.
Seinfeld mom that was on that. I believe Andrew Dice Clay referred to himself as a co-magnum instead of a Cro-Magnon.
That's
So that was pretty great. They did have the whole story. They keep referring to Terry Hatcher there as a supermodel, like this world famous supermodel, but she is never recognized. She is never.
no,
Well-
very much so. So the dad recognized her, said from no. The dad recognized her, but we never got a closure on that. One of the cops said, "I've seen her in my lingerie magazine."
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And catalog, and then she appears. They do they have a chat outside of a clothing
I
store.
did notice
and
that she's in the
there,
window.
and then they show her again on the thing. So they show ads that she's in.
But I kept thinking, like, at this time, if Cindy Crawford was like just milling around, like, it would be a little bit more of a hubbub than this lady
yeah,
gallivanting around.
And when they were in Andrew Dice Clay's apartment, he had a calendar on the wall, and she's like, "I'm in that calendar."
I'm in that calendar.
Oh,
And he's like, "Oh, I might see that later." But
in December.
but right before that, right before she walks in,
he's
was
looking through.
and like hubba
So
hubba.
I'm guessing, I don't know what this movie was rated, especially since it wasn't really released, but I bet you more than anything they were aiming for PG-13 at most, because this did not have any swearing in it. That calendar that they're looking through, they had bathing suit tops, because usually that's when they're like, they show the nudie calendar or whatever. And so everything was so like sanitized for who Andrew Dice Clay was. It's so weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were going for with this movie when it was released, and that makes you think like it was. I read somewhere that it was filmed to be a theatrical release, and then it was shelved for direct-to-video.
Wow.
So something didn't work.
Well, the movie did not
Clearly.
work.
Clearly.
Well, in my head, it makes sense. Like this coming out in 1993, already feeling dated. I imagine it was written several years before that. They tried to, like, during the Roadhouse, then Sylvester Stallone is doing things like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, and like everybody, Mr. Nanny, and like all of these huge kind of gruff men are trying to pivot into family movies.
Right.
This was probably shopped around to people like Stallone or even Bruce Willis or like some of these top tier people, and they all say no, and then it just kind of ends up.
3 Men and a
I
Baby.
mean, I think
was
by
that,
90,
Yeah.
by 93, it kind of missed its mark. If it was a parody, like this is after all of those movies were pretty much run its course anyway.
Yeah, then
it would have
should have
felt
been-
really weird.
So it didn't, other than the actual actions that were happening, the movie didn't feel like a parody. And I don't know how to explain that, but when at some point the police take Terry Hatcher in for questioning after some big not ninja fight. I forget how she ends up being questioned, but these two policemen are like being completely abusive to this woman who is trying to tell them like it's the not ninjas or whatever.
And they looked very stereotypical, like police detectives with their fedoras in the smoky room.
Yeah, and they were like roughing her up and asking her, "Why are you lying?" And
right.
so that makes sense as a parody,
Kind
but
of.
only if you do it as a parody. Like
Right.
a parody doesn't work just by switching out word.
It kind of feels like, when Tommy Wiseau was like, of course it was supposed to be a black comedy.
Right, it's funny. So that's why I wonder. But the script only makes sense if it was meant to be a parody. Else it is too weird to.
Maybe it was a parody on paper and then it didn't translate and they didn't realize they were making a parody when they shot it.
Well, I did have a couple notes. Last month we had a really great conversation with David Walker, who was in here and talked a little bit about being on the set of Brainsmasher, which is why we're doing it this month. And so I asked him this last week, any more thoughts about Brainsmasher that you want everyone to know? But it was so great. He just sent, Terry Hatcher had a herpes flare-up. Andrew Dice Clay is surprisingly effeminate when he thinks no one is watching. Just to the point. So that was pretty great. He then sent up a follow-up note saying Albert Pune, the director, had this thing about talking directly to the crew on set, and he didn't like it. Someone told him someone said he didn't like to call action. And one night David Walker, was on the set, and David was in charge of doing takes for him. The director would whisper in David's ear, say, roll camera, and then David would give the directions. What? It was weird, but really cool. And so I said, oh, wow, he's from the George Lucas school of directing, of like, if I forget to say cut, then you can step in and say cut.
Jeez.
So
that's crazy.
That would make sense then as something as difficult to construct as parody and satire. Would be hard to do if you're not
through the lens of a director who's not committed
or talking to you. So that was pretty great.
Huh. Can we talk about the greatest kill in this movie?
Ooh, yes.
Do you remember the scene where the not ninja pause. Speaking of the not nerd pod, I'm just like thinking,
I know.
We need the not ninja podcast.
Not ninja
yes.
For Chinese Shaolin monks.
But when the not ninja threw a bullet through a man's head, he caught a bullet and then threw it back into a guy's skull.
And every time one would and this happened a couple times where they would catch a bullet and then they'd show it and the bullet casings were still in it.
Yeah,
which means
so
it
you would
clearly
know
wasn't
it was a
fired. But they do have the not ninjas in this movie during the chase throughout the movie. They all have these superhuman skills. And their pursuit is of this magical flower that the Terry Hatcher's botanist sister has found somewhere, kind of like the Batman flower at the beginning of Batman Begins. And that will give them ultimate power. But it looks like they're doing pretty well. I mean, they could jump very, very high. They can stop bullets. They can do all sorts of things.
When that first guy jumped and the rest of the not ninjas applauded for him.
That was, I almost did a spit take. That was really funny. There were a couple funny moments in this. I do admit that.
That was their job. They came along just to be the clappers.
Just to be the audience.
Let's talk locations.
Yeah.
Yes.
There were some good ones.
Mary's Club.
Mary's Club.
Mary's Club was massively.
Which one was Mary? I've never been inside Mary's Club.
Whatever.
Sure.
What's
never been
Mary's Club? What? I don't.
So, where she said it was the Guild Theater, and I'll go in the Guild Theater and wait for the car.
Okay.
And then there was
she sits down and has water.
Has water. Dice comes in.
That's the inside of
Club.
Mary's. Oh,
Yeah,
that's much
Mary's.
bigger than I always like. Everyone said it was like so super duper tiny.
Well, they make it look big on camera.
Okay.
Yeah, it's small.
Okay.
But then she goes
that's funny.
backstage.
You go backstage. I've never been backstage at Mary's.
And that terrifying whoever she was showed up in the movie and chased everyone away.
Not Darcel.
So the not Darcel. So is there a Guild Theater? I feel like that.
There is a Guild
Okay, that's what I thought, but not. The interior was Mary's Club then.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't think that the Guild Theater has ever been opened since I've been in Portland, except for it just opened in the past like a couple months.
Where is it?
It is what is the park? Director Park downtown.
Yeah, by Fox Tower.
Okay. So it's next to the Fox Theater that was shown in this.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
that's what I thought. But then it was kind of clever because they never showed them in the same shot. So they used the Fox Theater as a location and the Guild Theater as a location, which was nice.
But right now, the Guild Theater is a Japanese bookstore.
Oh, wow.
It's a
That's
really
cool.
authentic Japanese bookstore. And most of the books in there are just strictly in Japanese, but they have a little cafe in the back and they have Japanese treats and candies and stuff.
That's cool.
Oh, wow.
It's
you
very
can
cool.
do Tai Chi and then giant chess in that park. So locations. Yeah, so we had that. We had that Zebra Lounge, which is where he worked at. There's a lot of Chinatown in here because they show what do you call the arch, I guess, that goes over the road for
the
Chinatown?
The
Chinese.
entrance to Chinatown.
Yeah.
And some of the restaurants, and I felt like that club was down like on Cooch and Second or
is that
Third or something.
Is that the first time they've used the Chinatown arch to represent a in theory larger Chinatown?
I think so. Is it the first time we've seen those arches? I feel like, or not?
Maybe.
I just felt like, oh wow, I've never seen them.
It could be.
Kind of. Maybe it was just the shot that was kind of nice. I guess of it. Where else do we have? Well, we had that skywalk that I think was between the. Why am I blanking on the name of the mall downtown? Pioneer Square. Jeez. So I think is there by World Trade Center? Is there a skywalk?
There is,
but that's
it
not by
doesn't
the Max
look
tracks
like
either.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
'cause
the one at Pioneer Square is covered. It's
I felt like they did
tube.
part of the chase in the Pioneer Square one.
Yeah.
But then you're right. I think they cut to the Burnside Bridge where they actually jumped on top of the Max. I guess I can look again, but you don't see a whole lot from the Max. You see a lot of parking structures go by.
Right.
But that just kind of goes up and down the street. Where else?
The church at the end.
Yes.
That is St. Patrick's Church downtown.
Is it St. Patrick's or St. Luke's?
Well, if we go by Amy Wade and her research in PD Eccentric, it is St. Patrick's Church.
Ah, okay, because it is called St. Luke's in the thing, and then I looked up St. Luke's, Portland on Google, and it looked like the same interior.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Further investigation will go, but I'm going to defer to the woman who actually wrote the book on it.
Maybe they switch saints.
That's good.
We don't like Luke anymore.
He's passé. The Lotus Lounge, which is downtown there by the courthouse.
That was an appropriate use of plot point.
Yeah.
Lotus.
Yeah. Where else? Say noisily.
There was an opening shot, establishing shot of Portland.
Yeah. I wonder if, because the copy we had, is that off of VHS? Where did we get that?
We found this through some
Fell off the
internet
back
means.
Fell off the back of a truck somewhere. Because it was clearly 4:3, but I wonder if the movie couldn't possibly have been filmed.
Well, it was filmed
'Cause
for
I wondered-
a theatrical release.
Right. Well, then, yeah, so it would be widescreen, but the version we thought was
But it was only
chopped
ever
off
released in video.
in Brazil. I wonder how many people in Brazil saw this movie.
What if we can find a 35 millimeter print somewhere?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Sorry. Are we done with locations? There's the
Sure.
Roosevelt Hotel, and is there a Hamilton Hotel around here somewhere, or at least used to be? 'Cause that was one of the signs in the movie was a Hamilton Hotel.
We'll
I
say
don't know.
yes.
Sure.
Yep.
So I got excited because this movie is going on and blah blah blah, and it's taking forever. And at the very end, there's a standoff in the club. The club is empty except for Terry Hatcher and her sister, the bad guys who have Andrew Dice Clay as a hostage. The sisters have the magical flower, and there's a standoff. There's some fighting, blah blah blah. Andrew Dice Clay kicks the bad guy in the face. And the guy's face implodes into Maz Katana's butthole eyes.
That's exactly
the only way.
It's exactly what
It
it
is
looked like.
exactly the same as Maz Katana and her butthole eyes.
Yes.
It was.
I don't think it was a kick. I think it was a punch, though.
It was a punch.
I think it was a punch.
Oh, and that's when
And
whoever was
then-
standing next to it was like, "Now that's what I call a brain smasher," or whatever
And then
she
I'm
said.
like, oh, that's like his secret power. He did the brain smasher
It's
move.
just to deflate somebody's face, which didn't kill him. He was up and kind of walking around a little bit after that.
It reminds me of something you would have seen in the Dick Tracy movie.
It
Yes.
does.
Yeah.
Yes. He's sitting
It's weird.
next to Prune Face and Al Pacino.
Brain smash, prune face.
Mumbles. Don't get me started about Dick Tracy.
Oh yeah, Madonna.
It's got Madonna in it. I'll never stop. Yeah, that was. I had already finished kind of taking notes and set my notebook to the side, and I had to make more room for all the exclamation points I put in for having someone's face kicked in. That was so nuts.
I wrote down brain smasher. That's what it means.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was crazy. I should make a GIF of that. Maybe
That was a good
Yes.
payoff for the title of the film. Not it,
It
wasn't
was.
just his name; it was his move.
It was his secret power.
Oh,
But
man.
then the guy is like blinded; he can't see, and he's fumbling around, and that's when he eats the flower.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
the flower was not the flower anymore.
Yeah,
It
they
was
switched it.
It was a poison one that she found at the hotel.
conveniently to fit in this rune type.
She is a botanist.
She is.
would
That
know.
is true. She is a botanist.
She would know the poisonous flowers that look just like lotuses.
Yeah, there were a lot of jokes about how like Terry Hatcher's a supermodel, but she can read. Type like you wouldn't expect her to walk upright and be attractive. Type thing.
She calls herself a bimbo like so many times.
Yeah, I did like. So at the end when she ends up at St. Luke's or St. Christopher's or
Patrick's.
St. Patrick's, she's at that point, I forget why, but wearing like kind of spandex biker shorts and like a little biker top, like very 90s. And she walks in to the church and is going to head down the aisle, but then like kind of stops and she kind of pulls down her bicycle shorts just a tiny bit more and puts on some holy water. I thought that was really kind of funny.
It was funny. Like that was one of the parts of the movie where I fell asleep is when she was changing into her stripper outfit at Mary's.
Oh, right.
And then when I started watching the movie again, I was like, why is she suddenly dressed like a stripper?
And I missed that too on because I looked down, and then when I looked up again, Terry Hatcher had like a long brown wig on, and then was doing something or other, and then the not Darcel shows up, kicks everybody out of the club.
One thing that I did notice, going back to locations, Portland, we used to have a Sbarro downtown, and it was only a block away from my office. I just find that fascinating.
Nice.
That there was a brick and mortar.
They had one, a brick and mortar one, because
Yeah,
they had
not
one
in
the
a mall.
Wow,
brick and mortar downtown Sbarro.
that's truly unusual.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sbarro. Where would
Italian food be?
Italian? I was gonna say baseball games. It's the only other place you can find a Sbarro is the mall and at some sports arena. And then we came to a halt. I had so many notes about that club, and every time I look at them, I just keep milling it over in my head. Like, I guess it was parody. I guess it was parody. Because even the people standing out in line who are like, those are like the 40-year-olds, but then inside the club, it's like all cool people or like whatever that would be in 1993. But then going back outside, there's some roughnecks that come up to Andrew Dice Clay, and like that's where they get in a fight or whatever, and Andrew Dice Clay lays them all out. And the crowd standing in line is horrified at like this display of violence. They're like, one of the husbands is like cradling the wife, and they're like looking away, and it like he didn't even brain smash him. He just sort of like punched them out. I could get it if they did the butthole eye things, and like that's very scary. But this, it was just like you're at a club like 2 o'clock in the morning downtown. Like someone's gonna get punched. You're gonna,
Right.
There was a line I thought that was funny when they were in his parents' apartment, and there's a knock on the door, and it's the not ninjas, and she looks through the keyhole, and she's like, "We didn't order Chinese."
To go.
Like the only reason a Chinese person would be at your door is because.
But then the dad did know at some point that they weren't. He's one of the people who said they're not ninjas. Ninjas are Japanese. They're Chinese.
You're so ignorant.
He says in his Brooklyn accent. What else did I have? Towards the end where Andrew Dice Clay and Terry Hatcher escape barely from one of the groups of the not ninjas, they're like, I think it's when Terry Hatcher locks them in the elevator and they run out, and as soon as they get out to the hallway, like they stop, and Terry Hatcher's like, "Oh, I need a massage." Like an upper shoulder massage, and she's like, "I just can't go on without it," or whatever she says. And so Andrew Dice Clay does it, and then
and
scene.
he got a little close to her. I think they were trying to introduce ideas of intimacy between the two.
Oh,
because they had he massaged her, and then he started to get a little close, and then they
had to take themselves back out of it,
right? And so they were trying to build on this romance thing
Yeah, they did not have a lot of chemistry.
No. and they even admitted, they're like, well, I'm not your type.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
End of transaction. Movie over. But yeah, that was a very weird moment where you're running from your life, but all of a sudden you have to get like a mild shoulder massage in the hallway before you can
Got a kick in my neck.
run away some more.
Did you catch the reversal of tropes at the end where it was Andrew Dice Clay who was kidnapped and then they had to rescue the guy?
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
Very progressive.
I know.
Andrew Dice Clay.
Yep. See, that's what he was trying to do.
That
trying
totally
to
makes
unravel.
sense. He's trying to undo some of that public image that's not allowing him to kind of take that next step into his career. So, but again, yeah, I've heard other stand-ups talk about him and talk about how he's nice and very generous and helps out like the newer comics, shows them the ropes and all that. So, I guess go see his stand-up. I wonder what his stand-up would be like at this point in 2020. I don't know if the world can handle Andrew Dice Clay.
Brought to you by Me Too.
Well, is there more to say? Mark, you enjoyed this movie, you said.
Yeah, I didn't hate this movie.
Right.
It had a plot. It was very Portland-esque.
It did have a very nice A to B to C plot that
Yeah.
was easily followable and not a lot.
Well, I think it helped that it took place in the span of one night.
That's true.
It had a very fast pace. There was like a kinetic energy that just pushed
Yeah.
it forward. Like they were always moving. And I don't know, in the grand scheme of Portland movies, this one kind of felt like right in the middle of the pack to me.
It's like an action breaking in.
Yeah. Break it in if it had more action.
More. Yeah.
And not a parody, a perfect slice of satire and parody like this movie apparently was.
Yeah, I'd say like if you are looking for obscure Portland things to watch, to round out your Portland history,
There you go.
then this could be part of it.
Right.
You could do a lot worse.
You
Yeah.
could do a lot worse, and I mean, in light of the fact that this whole parody thing is blowing my mind, but what a missed opportunity! Because I think Andrew Dice Clay could have pulled something, and Terry Hatcher is a good actress. I think they could have pulled something off had they. I just feel like they weren't really given. Or maybe they didn't want to be there, or maybe I don't know. I just feel like no one was invested except for the not ninjas,
Right.
who were all very delightful.
I think if they had gone a little bit more over the top with the parody, like made this more like a Loaded Weapon type movie.
Yeah, well, because at the moments where they are catching bullets and like jumping these heights, you're not sure. Well, are they? I kept writing. Are they magic? Like I didn't
Yeah.
understand the rules of the Shaolin
Shaolin
monks. I mean,
monks.
I've seen Shaolin Soccer or whatever the movie is called. But yeah, that none of that was really explained, other than for the fact that it was the joke to call them like we're not ninjas. But oh well. Did the director wrote this as well? Is that what you said, or not?
Let's
Am I
double check
miss-
that. I don't remember,
miss-
but yes, he did. Written and directed.
Well, that's very strange. And maybe it's just I don't know where the director is from. Maybe it's just a lost in
Brooklyn.
translation. He's from Brooklyn. That was, yeah. And why would they come to Portland?
Well,
Like, why not?
Yeah,
we never
why-
got
You
the
have
backstory.
Andrew Dice Clay.
Why was this movie set in Portland? That's a
Why
really
are you
good
going
question.
to Portland? Like, I kept expecting Andrew Dice Clay to be like, and I just got here, and I'm a stranger to this town too, or whatever.
Nope.
Need to work on my
Born and raised.
Born and raised. Went to David Douglas High.
Lewis and Clark College.
Oh,
Here I am.
Funny. So here's a cool bit of trivia about the director.
Ooh.
He was attached to both Masters of the Universe 2, which never happened, and when Canon Films had the rights to Spider-Man, he was going to direct Spider-Man.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. But then Canon Films went out of business for embezzlement and making terrible movies like Masters of the Universe. Wow, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
I still can't get over that he did that 90s Captain America one too.
Yep.
Wow. Well, is there any?
I did find, so I looked up mostly the actors, because one thing I really like to do with all these movies is look up the credits for all the actors in the movie, because some of them end up being like, I've been in every Portland movie ever made, and then we add a couple to our list. And I got one new movie out of the actors in this film. There is a 2012 film called Sacred, and it's a horror film.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And I recognized one of the names in the credits, thinking it was the sheriff from Goonies, whose name I always
Carl
forget.
Perkins, something like that.
And he's in every movie too, and I always forget. But Russ Fast, I recognized his name, and so I looked him up, and he has already been in. This is the 5th movie of his that we've done on this show. And he's got a bunch more. So he's been in Last Innocent Man. He was in The Haunting of Sarah Hardy. He was in Breaking In. He was in Dr. Giggles. And he was in Brainsmasher. And he's at this new movie that I'm looking at on the table.
I think we're going to have to like close out our Russ Wilson?
Russ Fast.
We're going to have to close out our Russ Fast filmography. And,
he could have been king. I should look into, I don't know if he passed away, but his IMDb thing just ends in 1997. So I don't know if he exited the game or if something happened or if he just got a job or what happened.
So we've tracked down this film. This is a European VHS of a movie titled Murder Run.
Which I didn't at all have any familiarity with until you told me the title that we...
No, because we know it as Rockade Richie.
And something at the hop.
Yeah, which is...
Sounds like an American Graffiti knockoff. But then this movie you walked in, Murder Run.
Murder Run. It is written and produced by Don Gronquist of Unhinged fame.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, the plot takes place in 1958, and a couple is on the run, and they go on a killing spree.
And it's got an awesome cover, too, like this illustrated cover. And I'm just realizing that Murder Run is written in the same way that Midnight Run, the Charles Grodin, I forget who the other guy in that movie was right now, movie from the late 80s, early 90s too. So I wonder if that was meant to jump on the popularity of that movie. So that will be exciting. We'll just need to find somebody that can take it from PAL to NTSC for us.
Yeah,
hunt down the same people who did Fatal Revenge for us.
It looks like Mark might have found something.
Oh,
That's
nice.
only recent. Just 1 year ago.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
He died
almost
last year.
to the week.
Huh.
Wow. Well, good for him. He was in a lot of our movies, so congratulations to you, Russ Fast.
Portland at the Movies Hall of Fame.
We need to start a little Hall of Fame for all these wonderful people we've been inviting into our lives each and every month. Any last thoughts about Brainsmasher, a love story?
It's appropriate that we watched it in right after Valentine's Day. It's a love story.
It is a love story.
It says so right in the title. I almost forgot. They have so little chemistry, I almost forgot they ended up together.
They had to put it in the title.
One of the things they had to do at the end to tell the audience, these two people will be falling in love.
There was a time when I think, didn't they directly ask Terry Hatcher, like, will you have his babies? And she was kind of like,
She's like, slow down. I just met him a couple hours ago. Say it. Say you love him.
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine.
It was fine. It wasn't quite as good. I know David Walker talked it up a little bit, but I'm sure that's because he has wonderful memories of calling action and cut on the on the set for the director. But yes, it's a very interesting, very obscure thing to...
It's not going to be my first recommendation to someone if they want to get into Portland films, but it might be my fifth.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, it's just the fact that it stars Andrew Dice Clay and Terry Hatcher makes it in that 5, I think.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks you for listening. The Unipiper, are you busy? What's going on with you? What do you have coming up?
I am going to be giving some money away soon.
Ah.
Yeah, we've got thousands of dollars to give away to some lucky Portlander.
We're looking at the pile on the table right now. It's all ones. You brought it in a huge bag.
Yeah, we're giving it away at a place called Mary's Club.
From what I hear about that place, you'll need to get that turned into quarters.
Yeah. Anyways, if you're not already signed up and following Weird Portland United, you should do so now so you can learn about how you might be able to get some of that money for yourself.
Very cool. And well, they're the weirdportlandunited.org, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Mark, what about you?
Well, you and I share a podcast called the Mark and Toddcast, and you can find us at markandtoddcast.com or on our Facebook page. And we talk about things in Portland and things that are science-y.
Yes.
And so we just talked to a scientist from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and he's on loan to them from...
It's still so funny he's on loan.
From the USDA.
Like he's going from museum to museum and next to King Tut's tomb.
The Steve collection.
Yeah, the Steve collection. And so Steve gave us great information about COVID-19 or the disease.
It wasn't even named.
It wasn't
yet.
named at
It
that
was
time.
named hours after I had already written everything up and published it.
I listened to that episode already, and I got to say it's one of the best Mark and Toddcast episodes I think
Wow,
I've
thank you.
ever heard.
Your former roommate, Steve. He was on loan from Brian's old house to the Mark
to the USDA, to the CDC, to the Mark and Toddcast.
Yeah. So check out the Mark and Toddcast.
Yes, and check us out on Fun Employment Radio. Check out the other shows on there, Brian and Sarah. No, that's
And go to Brian and Sarah.
Go to Brian and Sarah's house where you can talk about movies all day long. Greg and Sarah do a show every day, so check them out. Oh, and if you are listening to this in February still, come check me out on the 29th at the Eagles Lodge, where I will be at a Leap Day.
Easy to remember.
At the Eagles Lodge, I will be at the VHS swap there. So come buy some amazing VHS tapes from me. I might have a copy of Forest Warrior, as I have multiple copies of that somehow on VHS.
Crazy.
I love that
So other than that, you can go to portlandwithmovies.com, and on Facebook we're there too. I'm going to play one of the Not David Bowie songs from the movie about the Not Ninjas. We will see you guys later.